There is a moment that comes to every man who has worked hard, done everything right, and still finds himself standing in the same place year after year. It is not a moment of failure. It is something quieter, something more unsettling. It is the realization that the obstacle was never outside of him. The real barrier was built long ago, in silence, in the privacy of his own mind, and it has been governing his choices ever since. Most people never build wealth because of this. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they were born into the wrong circumstances, not because the world refused to give them a chance. They never build wealth because they carry a belief so deeply rooted that they cannot see it. It operates beneath the surface of every decision, every hesitation, every moment they turn away from opportunity. And because they cannot see it, they cannot change it. This is not about motivation. This is not about working harder or wanting it more. This is about something far more fundamental. It is about the invisible architecture of belief that determines what a man thinks he deserves, what he thinks is possible, and what he thinks he is allowed to become. And until that architecture is examined, nothing else will matter. The belief forms early, long before a man understands money, long before he makes his first dollar. He is learning what money means. He is learning it from the faces of his parents when bills arrive. He is learning it from the tone of conversations behind closed doors. He is learning it from what is celebrated and what is feared, from what is spoken and what is carefully avoided. A boy watches his father come home exhausted, trading hours for survival, and something imprints. He learns that money is hard, that it requires suffering, that wanting more is greedy or dangerous. He learns that people like him do not get to have certain things, do not get to live certain ways. And these lessons are not taught with words. They are absorbed, quietly, like breathing. By the time he is grown, the belief is no longer a thought. It is a reflex. It is the instinct that makes him lower his price before anyone asks. It is the hesitation before he speaks up for what he is worth. It is the voice that tells him to be grateful for what he has, to not reach too far, to stay where it is safe. And he does not question it, because it feels like truth. So he works. He works with discipline, with integrity, with everything he has. And yet, the ceiling remains. He sees others move forward while he stays in place. And he tells himself it is luck, or timing, or connections. He tells himself he is doing his best, and he is. But his best is being shaped by a belief that will not let him rise. The belief whispers in moments of opportunity. It tells him he is not ready. It tells him someone else is more qualified. It tells him that asking for more is asking too much. And so he hesitates. He waits. He defers. And the opportunity passes, and the belief is reinforced once more. This is the trap. The belief creates the behavior. The behavior creates the result. The result confirms the belief, and the cycle tightens, year after year, until a man looks back and wonders why his effort never translated into the life he imagined. He blames the economy, the system, the circumstances, but the real anchor was always within. The belief operates in patterns. It shows up in how a man prices his work, never quite valuing himself at the level the market would accept. It shows up in how he saves, clutching tightly to small sums while fearing the risk that could multiply them. It shows up in how he negotiates, how he presents himself, how he walks into rooms where decisions are made. He tells himself he is being realistic, humble, responsible. But underneath, the belief is protecting him from something it has decided is dangerous. It has decided that wealth is for others, that reaching is reckless, that wanting more means losing what he has. And so it keeps him small, keeps him safe, keeps him exactly where he is. And the cruelest part is that he does not feel restricted. He feels prudent. The belief has convinced him that his limits are not limits at all, but wisdom. That his hesitation is not fear but discernment. And so he remains loyal to it, even as it quietly dismantles every chance he has to build something greater. The belief becomes a silent contract he made with himself long ago. A contract that says, this is as far as you go. This is what people like you are allowed to have. This is the boundary you must not cross. And he honors that contract, day after day, without ever reading the terms. without ever asking who wrote it, or why he signed it, or whether it still applies to the man he has become. He watches others break through. He watches them take risks he would never take, charge prices he would never charge, pursue opportunities he would never pursue. And he tells himself they are different. They have something he does not. They were given something he was not. But the truth is simpler and harder to accept. They simply believed something different about what was possible. This is not about talent. It is not about advantage. It is about permission. The permission a man gives himself to want more, to reach further, to step beyond the invisible line that was drawn for him before he could even speak. And most men never give themselves that permission. They spend their entire lives waiting for someone else to grant it. But no one ever does. So the years pass. The work continues. The discipline remains, but the results stay flat. And he begins to wonder if this is just how it is. If this is just who he is. If the ceiling he keeps hitting is not a belief at all, but reality. And that is the moment the belief wins completely. Because now it is not just guiding his choices. It has become his identity. But there is another possibility. There is a moment when the pattern becomes visible. It might happen after a conversation, after watching someone else take the leap he has been avoiding. It might happen in the silence after another missed opportunity, when the excuses no longer sound convincing. It is the moment when a man stops and asks himself, what if the story I have been telling myself is not true? This is the beginning, not of success, but of awareness. Because once the belief is seen, it can no longer operate in shadow. It loses the power it had when it was invisible, when it felt like instinct or fate. Now it is just a thought, an old thought, a thought that was planted long ago and has been repeating ever since, unquestioned, unchallenged. And with that awareness comes a choice. He can continue to obey the belief, to let it guide him as it always has, or he can begin to question it, to ask where it came from, to ask if it still serves him. To ask if the man who inherited that belief is the same man who must live with its consequences now. Questioning a belief is not the same as rejecting it. It is simply holding it up to the light and asking, is this mine, or did someone else give this to me? Is this based on truth or on fear? Is this protecting me, or is it keeping me from what I'm capable of? Most men never ask these questions. They live their entire lives inside the boundaries of beliefs they never chose. Beliefs that were shaped by people who had their own fears, their own limitations, their own unexamined stories. And because they never question them, they never discover that the walls were never real. But the man who begins to question finds something unexpected. He finds that the belief, which once felt absolute, begins to soften. It does not disappear immediately. It does not release him all at once, but it loosens. It becomes negotiable. And in that small space of negotiation, something new becomes possible. He begins to notice the moments when the belief speaks, the hesitation before he names his price, the impulse to downplay his accomplishments, the automatic assumption that he is not qualified, not ready, not enough. And instead of obeying those impulses without thought, he pauses. He observes them. He asks where they come from. And what he discovers is that they are echoes. Echoes of voices from his past, of circumstances that no longer exist, of a version of himself that no longer fits. They are not truths. They are remnants, and remnants can be released. This is not about positive thinking. It is not about pretending the belief never existed or forcing himself to believe something he does not. It is about seeing the belief clearly enough to recognize that it is not him. It is something he learned. And what was learned can be unlearned. The shift begins in small ways. He states his value without apologizing. He pursues an opportunity without waiting for permission. He takes a calculated risk without letting fear dress itself up as wisdom. And each time he does, the old belief weakens. Each time he acts from a different place, a new pattern begins to form. The transition is uncomfortable. There is a part of him that will resist. It will tell him he is being reckless, that he is abandoning something important, that he is forgetting where he came from. But that voice is just the old belief, fighting to survive. It is not wisdom. It is fear dressed up as caution. And so he moves forward anyway, not recklessly, but intentionally. He begins to make decisions from the belief he wants to have, not the belief he inherited. He begins to act as if he is the kind of man who builds wealth, who creates value, who deserves what he earns. And at first, it feels like pretending, but over time, it becomes real. Because belief is not static. It is not fixed. It changes based on evidence, based on experience, based on repetition. And as he gathers evidence that contradicts the old belief, the new one takes root. Slowly, steadily. Until one day he realizes the ceiling is gone. Not because it was broken, but because it was never solid to begin with. He begins to see opportunities where he once saw obstacles. He begins to move toward growth where he once moved toward safety. He begins to trust his capacity where he once doubted his worth. And the world responds, not because the world has changed, but because he has. The opportunities were always there. The capacity was always there. What was missing was the belief that he was allowed to reach for them. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who he actually is, without the weight of beliefs that were never his to carry. It is about shedding the old skin that no longer fits and stepping into the fullness of what he is capable of. It is about alignment between who he is and what he believes about himself. And that alignment changes everything. It changes how he walks into rooms. It changes how he speaks about his work. It changes how he negotiates and how he invests, how he plans. It changes the baseline assumption from which every decision is made. And when that baseline shifts, the entire trajectory shifts with it. The man who builds wealth is not the man who works the hardest. He is the man who examined what he believed about money, about himself, about what he is allowed to have, and chose to believe something different. He is the man who stopped letting old fears dictate present choices. He is the man who saw the pattern and stepped out of it. This is the difference. Not talent, not luck, not circumstances. It is the willingness to look inward and ask the hard questions, to admit that the obstacle might not be external, to accept that the belief shaping his life might be one he never consciously chose, and to do the quiet, uncomfortable work of replacing it. Most people never do this. They spend their entire lives wondering why effort does not equal outcome, why hard work does not equal wealth, why discipline does not equal freedom. And the answer is always the same. It is the belief, the silent, invisible belief that was never theirs to begin with. So the question is not whether you are capable. You are. The question is whether you are willing to examine what you believe about that capability. Whether you are willing to see the belief that has been quietly governing your choices and decide if it still serves you. Whether you are willing to replace it with something that actually reflects the life you are trying to build. This is not easy work. It is not fast. But it is the work that changes everything. Because once the belief shifts, the actions shift. Once the actions shift, the results shift. And once the results shift, the life shifts. Not because the world became more generous, but because you stopped standing in your own way. The path forward is not about finding some secret strategy or hidden opportunity. It is about clearing the internal obstacles that have been blocking you from acting on what you already know. It is about removing the governor that has been limiting your speed, the ceiling that has been limiting your height, the voice that has been limiting your reach. And when those limits are removed, when the belief is updated, when the old contract is torn up and a new one is written, something remarkable happens. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily, persistently, undeniably. The man begins to build, not just wealth, but a life that reflects his true capacity. Not just success, but alignment. Not just achievement, but freedom. Wealth is not reserved for the lucky or the ruthless. It is available to the man who is willing to see himself clearly, to question what he has been taught, and to choose a different path forward. It is available to the man who understands that the most important building he will ever do is not external, it is internal. It is the dismantling of old beliefs and the construction of new ones. This is the work that matters. This is the work that lasts. This is the work that transforms not just your bank account, but your entire relationship with possibility, with value, with what you are allowed to become. And it begins the moment you stop accepting the belief as truth and start examining it as a choice. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. The belief told you otherwise. The belief told you that you were bound by circumstances, by history, by forces beyond your control. But that was never true. You were only ever bound by what you believed. And belief can change. If this truth awakened something within you, don't stop here. Your transformation has only begun. Understanding this truth is one thing. Living it is another. The space between knowing and doing is where most men lose themselves. They see the belief clearly. They recognize its grip. They understand intellectually that it has been limiting them. And then they wait for it to simply dissolve, for the awareness alone to set them free. But awareness is only the first step. The belief does not leave quietly. It has been with you too long, served you in too many ways, protected you from too many fears. It will not surrender just because you have identified it. It will adapt. It will disguise itself as reason, as responsibility, as realism. It will wait for moments of doubt and uncertainty. And in those moments, it will speak with your own voice. This is why the work requires more than insight. It requires practice. It requires the deliberate, repeated choice to act against the old pattern even when every instinct screams to retreat. It requires you to step into discomfort, to sit with the anxiety that comes when you violate the invisible rules you have been following your entire life. When you name your price and it feels too high, that is the belief. When you pursue an opportunity and feel like an imposter, that is the belief. When you invest in yourself and fear you are being reckless, that is the belief. And each time you move forward anyway, you weaken its hold. Each time you choose the new pattern over the old, you build evidence for a different truth. This is not about pretending you are not afraid. It is about acting despite the fear. It is about recognizing that the fear is not a warning system protecting you from danger. It is an outdated alarm, triggered by a threat that no longer exists. The belief learned to keep you safe in a world that may have been hostile to your dreams. But that world is not this world, and you are not that boy anymore. The transformation happens in the repetition. One decision at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time, and slowly, the new pattern becomes familiar. The discomfort fades. The action that once felt impossible becomes normal, and what once felt like pretending becomes who you actually are. But you must be patient with yourself. The belief was built over years, layered through experience after experience, conversation after conversation, disappointment after disappointment. It will not be dismantled in a day. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you slip back into the old pattern, when the belief speaks and you listen without thinking. When that happens, do not judge yourself. Do not turn it into evidence that you are not capable of change. Simply notice it. Observe it without attachment, and then make the choice again. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. As long as you keep moving toward the new belief, the old one loses ground. The external world will test you. It will reflect back the belief you are working to change, because the world is used to you operating from that belief. People will expect you to lower your price. They will expect you to shrink. They will expect you to stay in the role you have always played. And when you do not, when you show up differently, there will be resistance. This resistance is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are changing, and change always disrupts the existing order. The people around you have built their expectations on the version of you that operated from the old belief. When you step into a new belief, those expectations no longer fit. And some people will not adjust easily. Let them adjust in their own time, or let them fall away. Your transformation is not contingent on their approval. Your growth is not limited by their comfort. You are not responsible for maintaining the small version of yourself, just so others do not have to confront their own limitations. This is one of the hardest parts of the journey. Because the belief is often tied to relationships, to belonging, to the acceptance of the people who shaped you. Walking away from the belief can feel like walking away from them. And in some cases, it is, but you are not abandoning anyone. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself. The right people will celebrate your transformation. They will see your growth and feel inspired by it, not threatened. They will support your new belief because they want you to thrive, not because they need you to stay small. And as you step into this new version of yourself, you will naturally attract more of those people. But first, you must be willing to disappoint the ones who preferred you limited. You must be willing to be misunderstood, to be judged, to be accused of changing. Because you are changing. That is the point. And the people who truly love you will love the fullness of who you are becoming, not just the fragment they were comfortable with. As you rebuild your belief system, you will also rebuild your environment. You will seek out conversations that reinforce the new belief, not the old one. You will surround yourself with people who are also questioning their limits, who are also choosing growth over safety. You will curate your inputs, your influences, your energy, so that everything around you supports the man you are becoming. This is not about isolation. It is about intention. It is about recognizing that you are shaped by what you expose yourself to, and taking responsibility for that exposure. The old belief thrived in an environment that constantly reinforced it. The new belief requires an environment that nurtures it, and you are the architect of that environment. Over time, something shifts. The new belief stops feeling new. It stops feeling like something you are trying to convince yourself of. It becomes baseline. It becomes the assumption from which you operate, the foundation on which you build. And when that happens, everything accelerates. The opportunities that once felt like long shots now feel accessible. The risks that once felt reckless now feel calculated. The prices that once felt audacious now feel fair. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Your baseline has risen, and with it, your entire trajectory. This is when wealth begins to build. Not because you are suddenly working harder or smarter, but because you are no longer working against yourself. The internal resistance that was siphoning your energy, limiting your reach, capping your potential is gone. And in its absence, everything flows more easily. You make decisions faster because you are not second-guessing yourself. You pursue opportunities more boldly because you are not waiting for permission. You value yourself accurately because you are not filtering your worth through an old belief about what you deserve. And the market responds to that clarity, that confidence, that alignment. But the wealth is almost secondary. The real transformation is in how you feel. There is a lightness that comes when you are no longer carrying beliefs that do not belong to you. There is a freedom that comes when you stop living inside invisible boundaries. There is a power that comes when you realize you were never as limited as you thought. This is not arrogance, it is not entitlement. It is simply the recognition of what was always true. You were always capable. You were always worthy. You were always allowed to build the life you wanted. The only thing standing in the way was a belief that told you otherwise. And now that belief is gone. The man who completes this journey looks back and sees the pattern clearly. He sees how the belief shaped everything, how it influenced every choice, every hesitation, every missed opportunity. He sees how much time he spent fighting against himself, how much energy he wasted honoring a contract he never should have signed, and he feels something complex. Gratitude for the awareness, compassion for the version of himself that did not know, and a deep, unshakable commitment to never go back. Because once you have lived without the weight of that limiting belief, you cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now know. So he moves forward. Not perfectly, but persistently. Not without fear, but without letting fear decide. He builds wealth, yes, but more than that, he builds a life that reflects his true capacity. He builds relationships that honor who he actually is. He builds work that expresses what he truly values. He builds a legacy that extends beyond money. And he understands now that this was always the real work, not the external hustle, not the strategies and tactics and techniques, but the internal dismantling of the beliefs that kept him small, the clearing of the path between where he was and where he was always meant to be. This is what separates those who build wealth from those who simply work hard. It is not intelligence. It is not effort. It is not even opportunity. It is the willingness to examine the invisible beliefs that govern their choices, and the courage to replace those beliefs with ones that actually serve them. Most people never do this work. They live their entire lives inside the cage of beliefs they inherited, never realizing the door was never locked. They blame circumstances, timing, luck. They never look inward. They never question the foundation, and so they never break through. But you are not most people. If you have read this far, if something in these words has resonated, if you have felt the recognition of your own limiting belief reflected back to you, then you are already beginning the work. You are already questioning. You are already seeing. And that is enough. That is the crack in the foundation. That is the beginning of the transformation. Because once you see the belief, you cannot unsee it. Once you recognize the pattern, you cannot unknow it. And once you understand that it was never truth, only conditioning, you can begin to choose differently. The path forward is clear, not easy, but clear. Examine the belief, question its origin, challenge its authority, test it against reality. And when you find that it does not hold up, that it was built on fear and circumstance and the limitations of others, replace it, deliberately, intentionally, with a belief that reflects who you actually are and what you are actually capable of. This is the work of a lifetime, not because it takes a lifetime to complete, but because it is a practice you must maintain. New beliefs will try to limit you. New fears will try to shrink you. New voices will try to tell you what you cannot do. And each time, you must return to this practice. You must examine. You must question. You must choose. But with each cycle, it gets easier. The muscle of discernment grows stronger. The reflex of courage becomes more natural. The habit of choosing the expansive belief over the limiting one becomes automatic. And over time, you build a life that reflects not what you were taught to believe, but what you discovered to be true. Wealth is the natural result of this work. Because when you remove the internal obstacles, when you stop blocking your own path, when you align your beliefs with your capacity, the building happens naturally, not effortlessly, but naturally. The work is still there. The discipline is still required, but it flows from a different place. It flows from alignment, not resistance. So the question is not whether you can build wealth. You can. The question is whether you are willing to do the internal work that makes the external work effective. Whether you are willing to confront the belief that has been limiting you, even if that belief feels like safety. Whether you are willing to step into the discomfort of a new pattern, even when the old pattern feels familiar. This is not a question anyone else can answer for you. This is between you and the version of yourself you are capable of becoming. This is between the life you have been living and the life that is possible. This is between the belief you inherited and the belief you choose. And the choice is always yours. It was always yours. The belief convinced you otherwise. The belief told you that your limits were fixed, that your capacity was predetermined, that your ceiling was real. But none of that was true. It was only ever a story. And stories can be rewritten. You are the author of your own beliefs. You are the architect of your own limits. You are the creator of your own ceiling. And when you claim that authority, when you take full ownership of what you believe and why you believe it, everything changes. Not all at once, not without effort, but completely, irreversibly, permanently. You step into a version of yourself that was always there, waiting beneath the weight of beliefs that were never yours. And from that place, you build, not just wealth, but freedom, not just success, but alignment, not just achievement, but a life that feels true. If this truth awakened something within you, don't stop here. Your transformation has only begun.